Good Monday morning to everybody. Welcome into the Auburn Blitz podcast. We'll do a little weekend recap here for everybody. A lot going on this week coming in, obviously, with signing day on Wednesday. Auburn's got a big game with Duke coming up on Wednesday. So Wednesday is going to be a big day. We got the Super 7 State Football Championships going on this week. Starting on, guess what day? Wednesday. So Wednesday's got a lot going on, and then Thursday and Friday we will have the other 2 days of the Super 7. But obviously Iron Bowl this past Saturday didn't go Auburn's way. We had a good show yesterday. A lot of you discussing your frustrations and things that were going on with your thoughts on the game on Saturday. Wasn't pretty. Offensively, it definitely wasn't pretty. Defense probably didn't have their better day either. It didn't look like Auburn was really ready for this game. I don't know how you're not ready for this football game, but they weren't. And it was kind of a microcosm of the season, for me at least. If you look at it from offensive inefficiency in the red zone to just poor offensive game plan. Just kind of went right along with the theme. Maybe the Texas A&M game was a little bit of an outlier for Auburn. But just a little frustration boiling over into a big pile of frustration as we reflect on this season, Randy. So we'll start there.
Well, we talked for a while yesterday, had over an hour on a podcast on Sunday, and had a lot of you tuning in yesterday, and we appreciate that. Appreciate all of your comments. Appreciate you continuing to find us every day. Brett and I will be on with you somewhere around 8 o'clock. We're never perfect. This isn't our only gig. I can assure you of that. So when we are able to get here at 8, we'll be here. If not, it may be 8:30 like it was this morning. I don't even want to know what Brett's been dealing with this morning. To knock this one back to 8:30, and you see the smile on his face. I bet it was a lot of fun for this first 30 minutes of his Monday morning back. But again, glad to have you. It was a tough conversation yesterday that all of us had. I wish I had some answers for it. I wish I could come on and pass along that I've got a lot of confidence that Auburn's going to get things corrected, and this recruiting class added on to what we've done the previous 2 years is going to get us to the promised land. But I don't have a lot of confidence with that, Brett, with Hugh Freeze and this staff and the offensive woes continuing on for Auburn. I beat it like a dead horse yesterday, and really it's something that I wish all of us could come up with a reason why Auburn has been mediocre at best consistently over the last 15 years. But we've had a few outlier years, but this is the worst stretch in mine in your lifetime. I mean, 4 consecutive losing seasons for Auburn, 5 consecutive losses in the Iron Bowl, and most of them by 2 scores or more. I said yesterday, and maybe we'll kick it off with this. This past weekend was ugly all the way around in college football. Players acting out, coaches with zero control on activities that go on before and after the game. Mace being sprayed out at Michigan and Ohio State. I think 4 or 5 different universities having players going into the locker room after the game, pulling out a flag and going trying to plant it at midfield. Whoever's carrying that, if I were the NCAA, in which they have no teeth, and maybe that's the biggest problem, is the organization that governs this thing has no way of administering any kind of rules or regulations that go on because they have none themselves. But if it were me, I mean, whoever carried the flag and was associated with somebody carrying a flag to try to plant it on somebody else's midfield, they wouldn't play the next game. And as soon as that rule goes into place, that ends the flag planting because players don't want to be out unless you pick somebody that doesn't play anyway. It's just ugly all the way around. And for Auburn and Alabama, both of our teams were terrible actions all week. Very classless stuff that went on before the game. Auburn was high on that list of classless conversations that went on before the game. Now, we tried to defend it, and I understand why we tried to defend it, because we're hopeful that you're going into the game in an Iron Bowl game where you got some confidence. And that's the reason we defended it. But when you got out there, It isn't like you took what you said before and took it out on the field. Now, it didn't work out that way when we got out there. Everything that we said went the opposite for us. I don't have an answer on why it is. I said it yesterday, and I'd like to get your thoughts on it, Brett. But, Alabama's actions are eye-opening this year. It took 1 year removed from Nick Saban leaving, and this team hasn't acted like this since Mike Shula. I mean,
Right.
They haven't. Maybe that first year in 2007, they had some DJ Hall type players that were still left over, and they had some terrible actions. But since Nick Saban's been there, Brett, they haven't had these issues, and they have reared their ugly head in a big, big way. And look, we've had these issues. This isn't like this is new to us. We haven't had someone in charge that really demanded any kind of presence about them for a very long time. And right now, Hugh Freeze has none. I mean, we start fights on the sideline. We run our mouth before the game. We don't take it out on the field and follow through with what we said before the game. But that's us, and we're a losing team right now. I mean, we ain't had a winning season in 4 years, so we get what we deserve right now. But I'm telling you, Alabama's going to come back to earth if they don't change some of the things we've seen. And can Auburn take advantage of that? Hell if I know. Right now, I don't have a lot of confidence that we can. And Brett, quick note, I don't know if it's just me, but our bumper music's still going through right now. I don't know why it is on my end. I'm not sure if anybody else can hear it.
It's off.
Okay.
It's off.
All right, no problem.
So I'll check and make sure. Yeah, it's off on our end. You may have two streams going. So you may have something going on in the background. But, yeah, it's off. But anyway, yeah, I'll continue to go with you on that one. I don't really have much to say other than I'm disappointed in leadership all the way around. All this is a reflection of leaders, all these coaches. At the end of the day, the coaches are ultimately responsible for the actions of their team. And right now in college football, I don't see a lot of control. I don't. Whose fault is that? I don't know. I mean, it's their fault because it's their program and it's their expectations, but are they hogtied because of the new way of college football and they're scared to discipline somebody and afraid they might get pissed off and get in the portal and leave? If that's what we've come to, then I don't really have any answers, and I don't think it's ever going to get any better. If you don't have government from a standpoint of governing rules and regulations, then you're going to have free reign by the people that are involved in the organizations. And right now, the players have all the power. You said it. Look, I've talked to multiple Alabama fans this year, and they're not happy with the way their program has gone this year. And the reason maybe they've lost 3 games this year is because they don't have the type of control that's been, that we've been seeing for the last 17. But, since when is it okay to just destroy people's stuff? Texas, after the game, they waited till here's how cowardice Texas guys are. They waited till Texas A&M's players all got off the field and went in the locker room. Then they came back out there, and not only did they try to plant a flag or whatever, they went out there and stomped on the logo and tried to dig it up with their cleats. You had guys out there scraping, their foot over the logo. Hey, look, let me tell you something. It's a little bit more near and dear to my heart. I have a son that works hours upon hours on a football field for Auburn University, and I know how much pride that group of about 14 total, that's not a lot of them, that handle all the grounds for athletics. And they spend long hours into the night, sometimes getting that thing ready, and they have pride in that. And I can imagine it's the same in all these stadiums. For some of these idiots to go out there and just think they can go out there and tear something up because it's the rival's turf, it's disgusting, man. This world needed a change this past November. You're starting to see some things kind of come full circle and kind of rein some control back in. We had just allowed things to go nuts. And people just say anything and all this woke junk. And I mean, I think we've lost all sense of control on multiple levels. I'm not trying to get on here this morning and preach politics, but I think it goes hand in hand. The NCAA, if they can't have any type of control, then you just need to get the hell out. I mean, that just go away, and then somebody else establish some type of governing body. And if Congress has to jump in, look, I know that's not what everybody wants to hear, but if Congress has to step in and say, all right, you guys obviously can't do it, so we're going to put some regulations on these universities, which, by the way, still receive federal funding. Okay, so if you're asking how can Congress get involved, they dang sure can. And they can get in there and they can say, I tell you what, y'all want to act like a bunch of damn idiots? We'll just cut your funding out. How about that? And so since everything revolves around the almighty dollar anyway, and since everybody wants to do everything based on what's my next deal, then maybe that'll make the university stand up and start gaining some control. But I'm telling you, they've ruined this sport for me. They've ruined it for a lot of people. It didn't even feel the same Saturday after the game. I mean, really, normally if we lose in an Iron Bowl, it takes me a day or so to kind of get over it. Man, as soon as the game was over, I was like, all right, that's it. We were at a bunch of friends' houses. We moved on because I don't think any of these players really give a rip. Some of them may do, but for the most part, man, a couple hours after that game, they were back out doing whatever they wanted to do. That game was just old news at that point. It's the fans and everybody that are putting the time and the money in that care about these programs. I don't know if they'll ever stop, Randy, but you start getting some of these donors at these schools to say, you know, I'm tapped out. I'm tapped out. I've done all I can do. And, you know, obviously this program ain't going in the right direction anymore. So that's the only way you stop some of this stuff until you get somebody that's going to be over it and govern it right.
Well, I can promise you there are a lot out there that are saying the same things that we are right now because it's just classless. It really is. And you may say it's societal, and this is what we need to get used to with this new age.
I'm never going to get used to this.
I'm not getting used to that. You and I have the good fortune of calling a lot of great high school sports teams, and it is the exact same with them as it is with everything else, whether it be schools, administration at schools, businesses, CEOs that run businesses. You either have some standards that you're going to play or rule by, or if you're not a strong leader, it's going to show. And we see it on Friday nights. I mean, you can see a strong leader across the way, and that's no matter what demographic you want to throw in there, by the way. Zero to do with it. It's there's good leaders, black, white, pink, and purple. It doesn't matter what your race is, doesn't matter what your ethnicity, it doesn't matter what your religion is. There's good and there's bad all the way around. And that we saw Saturday was just bad. No part of any of that should be allowed to happen. I mean, this is not hockey. This is not where you can get in a fight out there in the middle of the rink and that's part of the game. No, that's not what this is. And it has slowly degraded back to really that era before they cut out all of those end zone celebrations and some of the crude stuff that we have going on. Look, I have no problem with celebrating. Don't get me wrong there. But what we saw on Saturday was just classless actions all the way around. And I said this on the show yesterday, so maybe some are tuning in today. But and I see Tony, and Tony, thanks for your comments, and thanks to everybody for the comments because they go a long way with what we do here. But he was talking about Baker Mayfield and him saying, just let the guys do what they did. No, I don't think that we need to sit back and watch this thing degrade down to the level that we're allowing it to. It was ugly all the way around. I think the actions post game are also equally ugly, Brett. Maybe take me back more than the fights that we see on the field are the players in the locker room and the 3 or 4 guys that are dancing around them, and the utter crudeness that comes out of their mouth, and the thought that a coach or anyone else in the world can see that now on social media. And they're smart enough. These kids are smart enough to know that anything they post can be seen by anyone. It's going to be shared to anyone.
They don't care.
They don't. And if they don't care, it's because they're getting there's no action being placed on them by the way that they handle things after the game. And that goes back to leadership. You know, I watched Alabama fighting with our players. And trust me, I'm sure that we were equally should be implicated just as much as those Alabama players after the game. But it's so bad that the athletic director for the University of Alabama has to go out on the field and personally grab. It wasn't Ryan Williams. It was the other number 2. And I'm sorry to you Bama fans. I don't know who the other number 2 is for Alabama, nor do I care who he is. But He's in the middle of a brawl, and the athletic director for the university has to pull him away and fight him off. That's where we've gotten. He cares so little. I mean, could you imagine the athletic director of the university and you're willing to get in a fight and he's the one that's got to pull you out of and look, we've got guys over there just as bad. So I don't want Alabama fans to say you're just taking it. No, Alabama's classless. Auburn's classless. Michigan's classless. Ohio State's classless. North Carolina and North Carolina State classless. Shall I keep going?
Florida, Florida State, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, USC guy punched him in the face during the middle of the game while he was on the ground. But you know what? That's what happens when you allow things to get loosey-goosey. And you see it, it becomes a trend, and these teams go, you know what we're going to do when we win? We're going to go out here and we're going to tear their logo up. And we're going to make a scene. And then it becomes, and it's like Andy said yesterday, if I have a team and that's my field and they don't fight back, then I'm probably kicking them all off because they got a problem because they didn't go defend their turf.
And I agree with that.
So I don't have a problem with it's the team that instigates the crap. And it could be either one depending on which field that you're at. And we haven't seen an Alabama team or an Auburn team go out and try to tear the logo up after a game. I hope we don't start to see that either. It was a little disturbing what we saw in parts of the game this past Saturday. Not even to the level, though, of some of these other ones. Now, Mississippi State and Ole Miss have kind of embraced that they're going to get in like 5 fights a game. They kind of use that as their attention draw. They even talk about it in the pregame, like this rivalry's nasty. You know, we're going to see fights. We're going to see crude things. We're going to see all that kind of stuff. They build off of it. They kind of embraced it. That's not what I want this rivalry to become. Now, again, you know, Auburn. It's time for Auburn to step back up and do their part and get their head back in the game with some of these teams that they haven't been in with in a long time. That's
no rivalry right now.
Well, it's not right now.
I mean, we're not a good rival for Alabama and Georgia right now. Go look at the record over the last 20 years. Tell me if we're a good rival for those two teams. We're not. How many times have we beaten Georgia in the last 20 years, Brett? 2 or 3 times?
I think 4.
So it was 16-4 or maybe 17-4 counting that SEC championship game. Is that right?
Right.
You think that's a good rivalry?
It's
that's
not
a pitiful rivalry. We just lost our 5th in a row to Alabama.
Right.
The games that we've beaten them have been,
you know, and that's the crazy thing about it is up until now, the streaks were really for us on the Auburn side. That's the one, you know, we were the one making the shirts, you know, and Fear the Thumb and stuff like that. And, you know, the 4 in a row at the end of the 80s. And then, you know, the run that we went on in the 2000s. I mean, we've had Alabama's been on the other side too now.
It's been a long time since they've been on the other side, Brett.
Well, it has.
A long time.
It has. It's been since probably 11 or
2007. Yeah, 2007.
Well, I mean, from 7 to 13, you know, we won a few in there. So it wasn't like, you know, they were winning 5 in a row.
Well, we won 7, 10, and 13.
Right.
7, 10, and 13, and 17. That's the games we've won.
So, look, going back, my point is, you know, really after 13, it's become over the last 10 years, it's really become lopsided because they've obviously won 5 in a row now. So they've won 5 of the last 10. And I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what else to say as far as they've won more than that. They've won 5 in a row out of the last 10 is what I meant to say. But you're right. I mean, it's hard to it's rivalry in name only at that point. And so, yeah, I mean, it's disgusting all the way around. I mean, and it all goes back to poor decisions by Auburn. Let's just be honest about it. And they've made a boatload of them. And that's not just coaches making bad decisions. That's administration putting guys in positions that they thought were a good fit for that program, and it's not. So, you know, again, Wednesday is a must for Auburn again. It's a must for everybody. We'll see how it all shakes out. But Auburn's got to figure out a way to stick most of these guys or make them stick on Wednesday. I mean, it's a must.
Well, they better figure out how to develop them too. I'm big into this recruiting, and I've said that I'm sticking with Hugh Freeze as long as he's recruiting the way that he is. But this is year 3 next year. I can tell you one thing: he better not go into a preseason presser or a post-game press conference in the first couple of weeks and tell all of us he's still rebuilding. Man, it's year 3.
No, that's just 3 years. He's
and
this
the
will be his
transfer
season,
portal
man.
era too, Brett. I mean, there's teams like Indiana flipping things around within a very short period of time by using the transfer portal. And I know that we're going to go out there and do it, but I mean it. There's no Auburn fans, including the 2 that you're watching right here, that's going to stomach, continuing to watch him use excuses like we don't have good matchups because of what he was left with. At a certain point, you got to say enough's enough with that. So I hate it. It is where it is. It's 4 losing seasons in a row. It's 5 losing to the Iron Bowl. I can't wait the basketball season to be the point of emphasis on this show, and I know that it will be on Wednesday. Brett, we'll start talking an awful lot about it, but until then, we've got to clean this recruiting class up and make sure. Have we heard any more? I haven't checked this morning. Any more guys that have entered the portal, Brett, at this time?
Not at this time, no.
Just Holden Garner, and nothing new from Hank Brown as of yesterday.
No,
Okay.
nothing there. I mean, again, you'll start to hear there'll be more, obviously, and there'll be more for every team. All of these teams are going to have players get in the portal. It's just the new way. It doesn't matter how good you are either. If you look back at Alabama last year, they had maybe lost their best player in the portal after having a really good year. I think Isaiah Bond's a good example to use. Here's a guy that thought the grass was going to be greener with Texas, and it may be record wise right now. They're going to go play for an SEC championship, so Alabama's not. So maybe if you look at it that way, but his numbers were not better than they were at Alabama last year. And some may argue that Caleb Downs didn't have as good a year at Ohio State as he had last year at Alabama either. So, the money in Quinshon Judkins, I mean, he left Ole Miss to go to Ohio State. Everybody's got to make a decision that's best for them, but I think they just get caught up in the offers and the money pulls them away. And you look down at the end of the year and you go, well, that wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I didn't have the impact I thought I was going to have. He thought Quinn Ewers throwing to him was going to pull him into some elite status, and it wasn't. I think he had 35 catches, man, on the season. Just average numbers for a guy that, a lot of people were saying that he probably was one of the better guys in the portal. And Glenn said that, he's been hurt a little bit, but, he's been out there a lot. I've seen him in most games. If he's been playing with a little injury or whatever, it hadn't kept him off the field very much. But I just think, again, it doesn't matter how good you are or not good. Kids are going to test the waters. Ed said, if I ever hear another coach at Auburn say, we don't let the scoreboard define us, we are raising great Auburn men, I'm going to puke. I want to win a national championship, and if it takes a few renegades to do it, recruit them now. All right, well, here's the deal. The reason I have a problem with that statement is that's not what I saw on the field Saturday. If we're not going to be defined by a scoreboard, then what are you being defined by? I didn't see a team that just said, okay, we lost, let's get in the locker room, get back on the bus, get back to Auburn. I saw a bunch of back and forth. Again, sometimes you got to be bigger than that. I think you got to, if somebody's jawing at you, sometimes you just got to say, hey, man, tip your hat, you won, I'm moving on. But we chose to get into some skirmishes. So that I'm not really buying that statement from him. So if you're not going to let a scoreboard define you, then what are you going to let define you?
I can't say it any better. I agree with everything you just said there. We just started for the first 12 to 14 minutes of the podcast this morning talking about how disgusted we were with what we saw on Saturday. And Auburn was just as much to be implicated as anybody else that we saw, and that is Hugh Freeze leading the charge. That included a fight in the middle of the game when we deserved equally the 15-yard penalty that Alabama got. I mean, we got a guy blocking somebody 8-10 yards out of bounds. You know, at a certain point, I mean, you get manhandled like that. I saw him. He lost his mind, but I don't know why he didn't lose it while he was getting shoved up against the fence over there. He didn't do it until I guess he got embarrassed by it.
Right.
But we deserved just as much of the penalty that they got. And then we're on their sideline. And of course, you're going to end up in a fight. And it just was ugly all the way around. I said it yesterday. Some of the things that comes out of Hugh Freeze's mouth at this point, I don't respect it. You know, maybe he ends up turning this thing around, but he gives me the ibby-jibbies. I said it yesterday, and I mean it today. There's just not a part of me that thinks that a lot of what he says, he follows through with himself. And maybe I'm wrong, and I'm hopeful I'm wrong, but I'm willing to come on and say that. That's how confident I am that most of the stuff, and Brett knows this, and I've said this even on the high school ranks, there's a whole lot of leadership and culture type of coaches now. They're outstanding, man. You put a mic in front of them, they can talk culture. They can get on there and really give it to you on how you build a program from inside. And I'm a good Christian man, and then when you get behind closed doors and you watch the way that they handle things in their own life and everything else, you go, hold up now. He's preaching to me, and then yet this is what's going on behind closed doors. There's still a whole lot of that I sense with Auburn, and I'm hoping I'm wrong. And for whatever reason, he's a magician when it comes to recruiting, Brett. He can get out there and sell it to the team or to the kids that he's building it. So I'm hopeful that he does at the end of the day. But right now, what we're seeing out on the field doesn't give me any strong feeling that we're heading in that direction.
Well, every problem that we really have had this year revolves around his side of the football. So, all of these issues that we have right now with quotes, the demeanor in press conferences, the rumors of him playing golf multiple times a week, all revolve around what he or he hasn't done. DJ Durkin has just gone about business every week, and, he's up for the Broyles Award because Auburn does have a top 15th ranked defense. And I heard Andy yesterday say that he wasn't giving Auburn's defense a pass and all, but my God, like Glenn just said, Auburn should have been up 17-0 at the end of the first quarter. I mean, they should. Now, you screw around, they get down there multiple times and can't get a point. And so you look at it from a standpoint of everything that's a problem. How about give your defense a little help every once in a while? It's kind of like a pitcher on the mound. He's pitching great. And, he's pitching shutout baseball, and he's only giving up one hit. And your damn offense can't give you any help at all. It's like if you get 2 runs on the board, you feel like you got 20 because your offense is struggling so bad. It's the same way in football, and your defense has really carried you all year. They're really the reason you haven't been blown out in these games because you only averaged about 16 or 17 points in conference play. And we were right there on that average again, right at 14 against Alabama. Alabama had 21 points at halftime, only scored 1 touchdown in the second half. It was 21-6. You talk about a boatload of missed opportunities. And Alabama fans can say, well, it could have been worse on their side. Yeah, it could have. But it could have been worse on ours too. I think both teams left a lot on the field. Both teams screwed up. This wasn't some clean game by Alabama. They turned the ball over 4 times. We're just so bad offensively, we can't take advantage of it. Any other time in the Iron Bowl, when the one team turns the ball over 4 times, that's a death knell. You can write it up. You can forget it. You don't give 4 possessions away. And you don't give 4 possessions away where Alabama gave them away and expect to come back and win the game. So Alabama scored 1 touchdown in the second half, and that's all they needed. I mean, this was not some razzle-dazzle, exciting Iron Bowl. It wasn't. I mean, and let's be honest about it. And Auburn's got way more problems than Alabama, but Alabama's got some too. And they got one player right now. And if Jalen Hurts don't have a good game most of the time, they lose. That's just the bottom line. I mean, Ryan Williams didn't have a good game. Malcolm didn't have a good game for us. I mean, a lot of the guys that we all thought were going to have impacts on this game, getting a lot of feedback. Got a lot of feedback. There we go. A lot of the guys that we thought were going to be impact players in this game were not. They didn't do anything. And so it was Jalen Milroe throwing the ball, making plays, and rushing for 100 yards and scored 3 of Alabama's 4 touchdowns. You take him out of the game like Oklahoma did, and you get about a 1-score game. So, yeah, I mean, we can look at this thing all different ways, and I'm not coming up with excuses. Auburn deserved to lose that game. They played like crap on offense. But I'm just saying that you're exactly right with what you started the show with. Alabama's come back to the pack. And not only did they lose 3 games, they had several more they probably could have lost. And you didn't say that during the Nick Saban era. You just didn't. But we all knew this. It didn't matter who the guy was coming in to take over for Nick Saban. Let's be honest. Kalen DeBoer set a record for first-year head coach at Alabama with 9 wins. Nobody's talking about that, though, are they? Because the 3 losses overshadow the 9 wins. Now, he got an Iron Bowl win, which really helps him, but after this year, it really is his team. It's going to be his players. It's going to be his program at this point, 1 year removed from what Nick Saban had built for 17. So there's still a lot out there to be figured out for them, but we have a whole hell of a lot to figure out on our side. And it starts and stops with Hugh Freeze. Randy, we will go in the direction Hugh Freeze takes us, period. And what direction is that? Right now is 2 losing seasons.
Well, from an identity standpoint, I don't know where he wants to take us. That's my biggest problem, Brett, is I don't have a sense of what we want to do and who we want to be. And maybe that's because we've struggled so much with the quarterback. But, Brett, he chose him, and he stuck with him. And I say that all the time when you complain about coordinators. When the head coach picks them and they don't work out for a very long time, well, you picked them. I didn't choose them. And so you can't use that as an excuse unless you have certain ones that are left for you. And that's kind of where we are. I will say this for Alabama that I thought that I was impressed with. Yes, they turned the ball over 4 times, Brett. But I told you the X factor in the football game, which it most of the time is for Alabama and Auburn, is who's more physical, who runs the football. Well, Alabama ran the football. Their running back had 28 carries. Our running back had 12. Their key running back had 28. And that's not even Jalen Milroe, who had some great carries himself. They doubled us up running the football on Saturday, and that was the key to the game. I mean, we had more passing yards than they did. A lot of that was mop-up passing yards that I don't know. I mean, it was after the game was going Alabama's way anyway. But they did beat us on the line of scrimmage, and we've got to clean that up. But we've beaten a dead horse here with this one, Brett. I'm hopeful that we can close out this recruiting class on Wednesday and get started on this transfer portal and go and find the best quarterback available and go and get him.
Well, it'll start with it starts with Deuce Night on Wednesday at 9:00. So we'll know early that probably the most prized recruit in the class. I'm not saying the other guys aren't, but we'll know early 9:00 Wednesday if Hugh Freeze got his guy or not, and it's down to Auburn and Ole Miss. And excuse me, if Auburn had just won a few more games, Randy, and showed some improvement offensively, this would have been shut down. This wouldn't even be riding this into signing day on the edge of your seat, worried that maybe in-state Ole Miss flipped him back. But they didn't do it. Texas A&M was a little bit of a star in the crown for Auburn this year, but then after that performance in the Iron Bowl on the offensive side, it leaves the lasting taste in your mouth as a bad one. Now, you get past this, we've been reading some stuff that Auburn somehow, some way could still go to a bowl game because they don't have enough. There may not be enough 6-6 team. Now, I just rather not. Now, I know that you and Andy and maybe Justin, some of y'all went out there and said take the game. And look, I'm fine with it if they get an opportunity to do it. But I've had enough of this year. I've seen enough. I'd rather just scrap it. I'd just rather go because you don't know what your roster is going to be like anyway. You don't know how many's going to opt out. And I'd just rather not back into some rinky-dink bowl game because you didn't have enough teams in the country that went 6-6.
Well, I agree with you. You know, as I hear you say that, I'm all about it. I mean, the only reason I say is some of these young guys, keep them out there, keep them practicing. I can kind of get that, but you know, a bigger problem is the way that Auburn's played in these bowl games the last few years. Also makes you wonder if it's worth it because we haven't shown up and we haven't played well.
If we can use the practice, there's no doubt.
I mean, we can use it, but do you use it in a positive direction or does it go in a negative direction? And I'm not sure the last couple of years haven't been negative. The way that we've represented the university at these bowl games and gotten run out of the gym and some really easier matchups that we should be able as an SEC team to handle, and we can't, proves how far we still got to go. So I'm with you. I'm glad this thing's over. I can't wait to get to Wednesday night, talk about Duke, talk about the Auburn matchup there. I saw that Duke, I think odds on's like 2-1 favorite over Auburn to win this game at home. But
nobody's surprised by that.
No, not at home. Not Duke at home. I think it'd be the exact same for Auburn if Auburn had Duke at our place. But we go over there with the best team I can remember us ever having at this point in time in the season, and a very physical team too. And I've watched a lot of Duke this year. I'm not saying they're not long down in the post, but they're young and they're not quite physical enough, I think, to match up with us. So are we willing to go down in the post and let Janai and let Dylan win that thing for us? Because I do believe them and Chaney are a much stronger, more physical post team than what I've seen so far with Duke, and that's including Cooper Flagg and the other post players that they've got. I think that's where our advantage is, and I'd rather that be our advantage than going into somebody else's Coliseum and expecting you to shoot them out of the gym. I think you can depend on going down in the post a lot more on the road than you can shooting the ball well.
All right, let's talk about a couple other things before we get off. We'll hammer that Duke game out pretty good the next couple of days and kind of break that down. A lot of focus on this college football playoff, and it seems that maybe 10 to 11 teams have kind of shored themselves up. So there's a couple spots, maybe really only one. And, you know, Lane Kiffin's making his plea to get in, along with South Carolina and Alabama, all three with 3 losses. And Ole Miss comes up with a pretty good argument, Randy. I sent that over to you guys last night. Their numbers are better all the way around. It seems like he feels like that Ole Miss shouldn't be jumped by South Carolina, even though they got beat by Clemson. I mean, they beat Clemson, that South Carolina shouldn't jump them. So I don't know. Who of those 3 deserve to get that last spot, Ole Miss, Alabama, or South Carolina?
I think South Carolina's playing the best football to close out the season. If I'm picking someone that's on the come up, I'd like to see them make it over the other 2. I think Alabama's probably, if I'm matching up with any of the 3, who would I rather not play against? This Alabama. I think if Alabama can clean things up and really play at their peak, that they can win a national championship, and I'm not sure the other 2 can. So that's my feel. My answer is I'm hopeful that South Carolina sneaks their way in over the other 2. I bet you it's Alabama that gets in, though.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you know, I think it's going to come down to this committee just having to make a decision.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to. I mean, what are they going to look at? You know, what are they going to look at from a standpoint of how they pick? You know, from 3 teams that are 9-3 and that are sitting there that feel like they all need have a legit argument to get in this thing. You got an SEC championship game coming up Saturday. Texas first year in the SEC. This was the preseason prediction by the press, was Georgia, Texas. I think a lot of us had that going in as well. We had that matchup coming, and it ended up being, what we're going to see Saturday. All right, there's some rumors that maybe Quinn Ewers gets in the portal after this season.
I can see that.
Is that somebody Auburn should go after?
Yes. We go after everybody.
I'm talking about immediately.
Oh, immediately. Him and whoever the other top two are. The top three in the portal is who Auburn's got to go after, Brett. You got to find a way to get somebody. And I'd take him. I think Arch Manning deserves his chance to play. From what I see, he needs to be on the field more.
Well, I think he's the better of the two.
I agree. But you can't you can't take him out either now. He almost lost them the game the other night.
Yeah, he did.
Man, he made 2 or 3 terrible plays to close that game out. So I'd take him, though. He'd be a step up from what we've got in that locker room, and that would include Deuce Knight coming in. There's no part of me that thinks that young man playing in small school Mississippi football is going to come over here and in year one set the world on fire in the SEC. I have no expectation that's going to happen.
Going to be an interesting week. We got a lot to cover. We'll be on at 12, Randy, for the Auburn Blitz. You and I'll have that show again today. We want to remind everybody that we got some cool things coming up. We'll be over at Bunkers in Auburn in a couple of weeks. Hard to believe, man. We're in December. Man, we're about 3 weeks out from Christmas, man. This thing is rocketing by, but we'll be over in Bunkers to have a live show on Friday the 13th. So we're excited about being partnered with Bunkers now, and all the great businesses that we've added this year. Man, Pepper Tree Steaks and Wine has been phenomenal. We want to thank Sensa Green for their sponsorship and what they're doing. And we obviously want to thank J.A. Smith Construction and Russell Do-It Center Building Supply Stores, as well as being our corporate partners over on the Auburn Blitz TV side, Randy. So we're just proud, and we're going to be adding some more. We already have some more that have contacted us that want to be part of our programming, and we really appreciate that. We feel like, we're gaining a lot of steam with this podcast and getting a lot of positive feedback and a lot of fun comments back and forth. So excited about what we got coming up going into next year.
Yeah, very busy down here in Dadeville too. So if you've got advertising, marketing budgets you want to use before the end of the season, give us a call at Lee Apparel from Screen Printing, Embroidery, DTFs, Promotional Products, 256-825-0197, and signs from start to finish. We can design you a sign and make sure that it gets installed the right way. That's digital boards, scoreboards for your school, entrance signs from a digital standpoint for your school. We handle all of those at Sign Source here in Dadeville, 256-825-0197.
And finally, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Those numbers continue to go up. We appreciate it. Spread the word. If you love our content, you like what we're doing, let everybody know about it, especially all you Auburn fans out there. We try to keep it real. We get that, that comment from a lot of you out there that you love that we have real talk. We don't try to rose-colored glass things around here. And look, we give praise when praise is due. We'd rather come on here and talk about all the great things all the time. I hate negative stuff, but we're not going to run from it. We're not going to act like things are hunky-dory when they're not. And I think that's where some channels and some groups, they try to ride a PC fence. And not saying that we're going to be over the top and vile about the way we talk. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that we're going to call things the way we see them. And if we don't feel like somebody's doing what they need to do for our program, and I say our program because we give money to this program and we support this program. You and I are both graduates of that school. So we take a lot of pride in that. We want our teams to be the best they possibly can be. And if we're going to pay coaches a lot of money, they need to do their job. And so
and I'll jump in right there. I said it yesterday. I can't remember the last negative comment that we said about Bruce Pearl in that basketball program.
Because you'd look stupid if you did.
I mean, we've had some things that we wish would have gone our way, but I think that we all prefaced any conversation we had on that with, my gosh, pinch yourself on how good things are right now. So I'd much rather sit here and say the same thing about our football program, but you can't give a real take on that and be willing to watch Auburn have to buy into a every year rebuilding project. And that's what the university's expected from the Auburn fan base for far too long. We're rebuilding this thing. We've got a new coach, give him time, sit back and wait. You can't be too quick. And we've heard it until we're blue in the face, and we've seen and heard that all we want. So no, I mean, we're going to keep on giving, a realistic take on what we think the program or where we think the program stands. And right now, we're not happy about it. And everybody that I talk to as an Auburn fan is not happy about it either.
All right, guys, we'll close it out there. Again, we appreciate everybody that tunes in every Monday or every day on the podcast. And we appreciate everybody that watches our show at noon. We'll be on with you here in just a few hours for Auburn Blitz. So make sure you tune in. Have a great day, everybody.